Are you a fan of classic Hollywood cinema? If so, you've likely seen many of Janet Leigh's films. She was an actress whose career spanned from the late 40s to her final role in 2001. Her life story was just as thrilling as many of her most famous roles. Let's look back at Janet Leigh's incredible life and career. Early life. Janet Leigh was born Jeanette Helen Morrison on July 6, 1927 in Merced, California. She grew up in Stockton, California as an only child. Her father originally worked in a factory and then had to take additional jobs to support the family during the Great Depression. Jeanette grew up in poverty, but this didn't stop her from excelling in academics. She also practiced singing, partaking in her church choir. She ended up graduating from high school at age 16. She then attended the University of the Pacific, where she studied music and psychology. During her childhood, Jeanette spent much of her time watching movies. And as a student at the University of the Pacific, a career as an actress seemed unlikely. That is, until she decided to visit her parents during one vacation. Before we tell you more about Janet Leigh's storied life and career, be sure to give this video a like and subscribe to Facts First for more. The picture at the ski resort. On a break from her studies, Jeanette visited a ski resort where her parents were working. There, a retired MGM producer named Norma Shearer saw a picture of Jeanette at the resort's front desk. Norma asked to borrow the photo to show other film execs. This led to Jeanette being called in for a screen test for a film called The Romance of Rosy Ridge. She landed the role, and this contributed to her launching her film career. It was also during this time that Jeanette adopted the stage name Janet Leigh. While there was some concern the surname might cause others to confuse her with Vivian Leigh, she decided to keep it as is. Throughout the 40s and 50s, she appeared in a slew of films produced by MGM, as well as several independent films. Her notable films during this period were Act of Violence, The Doctor and the Girl, Little Women, That Forsyte Woman, and Houdini. With each film role, Janet Leigh's profile grew bigger. By the mid-50s, she was one of Hollywood's biggest stars. Psycho. One of Janet Leigh's most famous roles was as Marion Crane in Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. In the movie, Marion Crane decides to steal a large briefcase full of money that belongs to her employer. After taking it, she decides to skip town, eventually coming across the Bates Motel where she plans to spend the night. We won't spoil it if you're one of the few who haven't seen this amazing film, but after working on Psycho, Janet Leigh was afraid of taking showers. She would always opt for baths and made sure her windows and doors were always locked. She wasn't alone, of course. Psycho made such an impact on audiences at the time that many of them were afraid of their showers. But this role was one of many that showed Janet Leigh's amazing range as an actress. It showed that even though she was a huge film star, no role was too small for her. For her, the character, her performance, and the film are what mattered the most. While it's a small one, Janet Leigh's role in Psycho is arguably one of the best performances in any 20th century American horror or thriller film. Family. Before Janet Leigh was married to Tony Curtis, she had a short marriage to John Kenneth Carlyle. She was 15 at the time, but claimed to be 18. Naturally, the marriage was annulled a few months later. Her most famous marriage was with actor Tony Curtis, who was her third husband. They also acted together in a few films, including Houdini. With Tony, Janet had 2 children, Kelly and Jamie Lee Curtis. Both daughters became accomplished actresses. Jamie Lee Curtis, like her mother, also had a great career appearing in notable horror films like the Halloween series. Janet also acted in a film with Jamie Lee Curtis called The Fog in 1980. They appeared together in 1998's Halloween H2O 20 years later. Both actresses are now considered legends of the horror genre. Both also became huge Hollywood starlets. Her marriage to Tony Curtis didn't last, and they got divorced in 1962. Her final marriage was with Robert J. Brandt, with whom she remained married until she died in 2004. While her career was important to her, Janet also valued her family and children greatly. She was originally offered the role of Simone Clouseau in The Pink Panther, which went to a French model named Capucine. The film would have required her to spend months in Europe, but she wanted to spend more time with her daughters as well as her husband Robert, so she turned it down. Fun facts. Did you know that in addition to being a talented actress, she was also an accomplished writer? She wrote 2 novels and a non-fiction book about the making of Psycho called Psycho: Behind the Scenes of the Classic Thriller. It's hard to believe she was only in her 30s when she appeared in Psycho. During her 30s, she also appeared in 2 other famous films, Touch of Evil and The Manchurian Candidate. Many of her films are among the greatest films made in America. In fact, a few have been selected by the National Film Registry for preservation. These include The Naked Spur, Touch of Evil, Psycho, and The Manchurian Candidate. Did you know she wasn't the original choice for Marion Crane in Psycho? She was originally going to play Lila Crane, which eventually went to Vera Miles. Hitchcock decided it would be best if both actresses switched roles. Apart from her work, Janet Leigh was also active in politics. She was a Democrat and campaigned for John F. Kennedy in the 1960 presidential election. After turning down the role of Simone Clouseau in The Pink Panther, she decided to take a 3-year hiatus to spend more time with her daughters. She returned to acting in 1966 with Kid Rodello and Harper as her first releases that year. While acting was the focus of her career, she also sang in church as a youth, while as a student she joined the a cappella choir. She also joined the Alpha Theta Tau sorority. In the 80s and 90s, she had small roles in popular TV shows like Murder, She Wrote, The Twilight Zone, and Fantasy Island. Her final role was in the film Bad Girls from Valley High, released in 2005. Legacy. Janet Leigh died from vasculitis on October 3, 2004 in LA. She remains one of Hollywood's most iconic actresses. Her work with her daughter Jamie Lee Curtis should be watched by any fan of horror. She was also known to be a good sport on a film set and remembered by her co-stars fondly. While Anthony Perkins is forever remembered as Norman Bates, Janet Leigh remembers him as a great leading man. She recalls the fun she had on the set of Psycho and how Hitchcock tried to scare her, no doubt to prepare her for the role. She's an example of an iconic actress who makes us remember the greatness of old Hollywood. She had beauty, a great fashion sense, and incredible versatility. Now it's time to hear from you. Do you think Janet Leigh gets the appreciation she deserves today? Let us know in the comments section below. And before you go, make sure you give this video a like and subscribe to Factsverse if you haven't already. Click the bell icon to stay updated on all our latest content.